Hello, my name is Kit Neeson, and I am the proud director of the Great Valley Drama Guild. Welcome to our first virtual production, Edgar Lee Masters' Spoon River Anthology. Published over a century ago, Masters' collection of poems were both fresh and shocking. Deceased inhabitants of a small Illinois town are no longer constrained by the rules of 19th century society. Through their confessions, we learn that the corrupt and abused live amongst the content and naive. To make this production possible during a pandemic, we had to have auditions and rehearsals online. Students audio recorded music from home, and when we met them to film in person, it was outdoors. Both the actors and the film crew wore masks. Once the camera began to roll, actors did remove their masks, and the crew remained 6 feet away. There are many people to thank for all their work behind the screen. I would like to thank our producer, Brennan Judge, and our cameraman and film editor, Kevin Fitzpatrick. I would also like to thank St. Peter's Church for allowing us to film in their historic cemetery. Thank you, Sheila Startup and Melanie Zhang, for your beautiful logo. And I appreciate the cast, guild parents, and volunteers who followed us into this new adventure. Finally, I wish to thank you, the audience. If possible, during our 5-minute intermission, consider making a donation. You'll find above the minimized screen a hand holding a coin. Any amount is appreciated. Thank you in advance for supporting our public schools and the arts. Now, without further ado, I invite you to Spoon River Anthology.
Studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down, down to the river to pray.
Where are Elmer, Herman, Bert, Tom, and Charlie? The weak of will, the strong of arm, the clown, the boozer, the fighter. All are sleeping on the hill.
One passed in a fever.
One was burned in a mine.
One was killed in a brawl.
One died in a jail.
One fell from a bridge, toiling for children and wife. All are sleeping, sleeping on the hill.
Where are Ella, Kate, Mag, Lizzie, and Edith? The tender heart, the simple soul, the loud, the proud, the happy one? All are sleeping on the hill.
One died in shameful childbirth.
One of a thwarted love.
One at the hands of a brute in a brothel. one of a broken pride in the search for heart's desire.
One afterlife in faraway London and Paris was brought to her little space by Ella and Kate and Mag. All are sleeping, sleeping, sleeping on the hill.
Where are Uncle Isaac and Aunt Emily and old Towny Kincaid and Sabine Houghton and Major Walker, who talked with venerable men of revolution? All are sleeping on the hill.
They brought them dead sons from the war, and daughters whose lives had been crushed, and their children fatherless, crying. All are sleeping, sleeping, sleeping on the hill.
Where is old Fiddler Jones, who played with life all his 90 years, braving the sleep with bared breast, drinking, rioting, thinking neither of wife nor kin, nor gold, nor love, nor heaven? Lo, he babbles of the fish fries of long ago, of the horse races of long ago at Clary's Grove, of what Abe Lincoln said one time at Springfield.
Here lies the body of Lois Spears, born Lois Fluke, daughter of Willard Fluke, wife of Cyrus Spears and mother of Myrtle and Virgil Spears, children with clear eyes and sound limbs. I was born blind. I was the happiest of women as wife, mother, and housekeeper, caring for my loved ones and making my home a place of order and bounteous hospitality. For I went about the rooms and about the garden with an instinct as sure as sight, as though there were eyes in my fingertips. Glory to God in the highest.
She loved me. Oh, how she loved me. I never had a chance to escape from the day she first saw me. But then we were married and I thought she might prove her mortality and let me out, or she might divorce me. But few die, none resign. Then I ran away and was gone a year on a lark. But she never complained. She said all would be well, that I would return. And I did return. I told her that while taking a row in a boat, I'd been captured by pirates near Van Buren Street and kept in chains so that I could not ride her. She cried and kissed me, said it was cruel, outrageous, inhumane. I then concluded our marriage was divine dispensation and could not be dissolved, except by death. I was right.
He ran away and was gone for a year. When he came home, he told me that silly story of being kidnapped by pirates on Lake Michigan. I pretended to believe it, though I knew very well what he was doing, and that he met the milliner, Mrs. Williams, now and then, when she went to the city to buy goods, as she said. But a promise is a promise, and marriage is marriage, and out of respect for my own character, I refused to be drawn into a divorce by the scheme of a husband who had merely grown tired of his marital vow and duty.
I was the milliner, talked about, lied about, mother of Dora, whose strange disappearance was charged to her rearing. My eye, quick to beauty, saw much besides ribbons and buckles and feathers and leghorns and felts to set off sweet faces of dark hair and gold. One thing I'll tell you, and one thing I'll ask, is that the stealers of husbands wear powder and trinkets and fashionable hats. Wives, wear them yourselves. Hats may make divorces. They also prevent them. Well, now, let me ask you. If all the children born here in Spoon River had been reared by the county, somewhere on a farm, and the fathers and mothers had been given their freedom to live and enjoy, change maids if they wished. Do you think Spoon River had been any the worse?
When Reuben Pontier threw me, I went to Springfield. There I met a lush, whose father, just deceased, left him a fortune. He married me when drunk. My life was wretched. A year passed, and they found him dead. That made me rich. I moved on to Chicago. After a time, I met Tyler Roundtree, villain. I moved on to Chicago. A gray-haired magnate went mad about me, so another fortune. He died right in my arms, you know. I saw his purple face for years thereafter. There was almost a scandal. I moved on, this time to Paris. I was now a woman, insidious, subtle, versed in the world, and rich. My sweet apartment near the Champs-Élysées became a center for all sorts of people, musicians, poets, artists, dandies, nobles. I wed Count Navigato, native of Genoa. He poisoned me, I think. Now in the Campo Santo overlooking the sea where young Columbus dreamed new worlds. See what they have chiseled. Contessa Navigato implora eterne quiete.
Road slave, selling shoes and gingham, flour and bacon, overalls and clothing for 14 hours a day for more than 313 days, for more than 20 years, saying yes'm and yes sir and thank you 1,000 times a day, all for $50 a month, living in this stinking room, compelled to go to Sunday school 104 times a year, more than an hour at a time, because Thomas Rhodes ran the church, as well as the store and the bank. So while I was tying my necktie that morning, I suddenly saw myself in the glass. My hair had gone all gray, my face a sodden pie. So I cursed and I cursed, you damn old thing, you cowardly dog, you rotten pomper, you road slave! Until Roger Bunningham thought I was having a fight with someone, and looked through the transom just in time to see me fall in a heap, for a vein had broken in my head.
The sudden death of Eugene Carmen put me in line to be promoted to $50 a month. And so I went home and I told my wife and children that night. But it never came. And so I thought old Rhodes suspected me of stealing the blankets that I took and I sold on the side. But it was for money to pay for a doctor's bill for my little girl. Then, like a bolt, old Rhodes accused me and promised me mercy for my family's sake if I confessed. And so I confessed. And I begged him to keep it out of the papers. And I asked the editors too.
That night, the constable took me from my home, and every paper in town wrote me up as a thief, because Old Rhodes was an advertiser and wanted to make an example of me. And oh, you know how the children cried, and how my wife pitied and hated me, and how I came to lie here.
After attending lectures at Chautauqua and studying French for 20 years, committing grammar almost by heart, I decided to take a trip to Paris to give my culture a final polish. So, I went to Peoria to get my passport. And there, the clerk at district court made me swear to support and defend the Constitution. Yes, even me, who couldn't defend or support it at all. And what do you think? That very morning, the federal judge, in the very next room to the room where I took the oath, decided the Constitution exempted Rhodes from paying his taxes for the waterworks of Spoon River.
Very well, you liberals, you navigators into realms intellectual, you sailors through heights imaginative, blown about by erratic currents, tumbling into air pockets, you Margaret Fuller slacks, Ida Chickens, and Dorcas Gustines. You found, with all your boasted wisdom, how hard at the last it is to keep the soul from splitting into cellular atoms, while we, seekers of earth's treasures, getters and hoarders of gold, are self-contained, compact, harmonized, even to the end.
All they said was true. I wrecked my father's bank with my loans to dabble in wheat. But this was true. I was buying wheat for him as well, who couldn't margin a deal in his name because of his church relationship. I've chased the will-o'-the-wisp of women. It's deathly to sicken of wine and women when there's nothing else in life.
I killed the son of the merchant prince at Madame Lou's. And the papers that said he killed himself in his home while cleaning a hunting gun lied like the devil to hush up scandal for the bribe of advertising. In my room, I shot him at Madame Lou's because he knocked me down when I said that, despite all the money he had, I'd see my lover that night.
I know where I'm going, and I know who's going with me. I know who I love, but the dear knows who I'll marry. Some say he's dark, some say he's bonny, but the fairest of them all is my handsome, winsome Johnny.
Tom Merritt broke our engagement of 8 years when Annabelle returned to the village from the seminary. Ah, me. If I had let my love for him alone, it may have grown into a beautiful sorrow, who knows, filling my life with its healing fragrance. But I tortured it. I poisoned it. I blinded its eyes, and it became hatred, deadly ivy instead of clematis. And my soul fell from its support, its tendrils tangled in decay. Do not let the will play gardener to your soul, unless you are sure it is wiser than your soul's nature.
At first I suspected something. Annabelle acted so calm and absent-minded. And one day I heard the back door shut. As I entered the front, I saw him slink back at the smokehouse, into the lot, and run across the field. And I meant to kill him on sight. But that day, walking near Fourth Bridge, without a stick or a stone at hand, all of a sudden, I saw him standing. And all I could say was, "Don't! Don't! Don't!" as he aimed and fired at my heart.
What but the love of God could have softened and made forgiving the people of Spoon River towards me, who wronged the bed of Thomas Merritt and murdered him beside? O loving hearts that took me in again when I returned from 14 years in prison. O helping hands that in the church received me. and heard my tears with penitent confession, who took the sacrament of bread and wine. Repent, ye living ones, and rest with Jesus.
Silent before the jury, returning no word to the judge when he asked if I ought to say against my sentence, only shaking my head. What could I say to people who thought a woman of 35 was at fault, when her lover of 19 killed her husband, even though she said to him over and over, "Go away, Elmer, go far away. I have maddened your brain with the gift of my body, and you will do some terrible thing." And just as I feared, he killed my husband, which I had nothing to do with, before God. Silent for 30 years in prison, and the iron gates of Joliet swung as the gray and silent trustees carried me out in a coffin.
I am Minerva, the village poetess, hooted at, jeered at by the yahoos of the street, for my heavy body, my cockeye, and my rolling walk. And all the more when Butch Welby captured me after a brutal hunt. He left me to my fate with Dr. Myers, and I sank into death, growing numb from the feet up, like one stepping deeper and deeper into a stream of ice. Will someone go to the village newspaper and gather into a book the verses I wrote? I thirsted so for love. I hungered so for life.
No other man, unless it was Doc Hill, did more for the people in his town than I. And all the weak, the halt, the improvident, and all those who could not pay flocked to me. I was kind-hearted, easy Dr. Myers. I was healthy, happy, in comfortable fortune. Blessed with a congenial mate. My children raised, all wedded, doing well in the world. And then one night, Minerva the poetress came to me in her troubles, crying. I tried to help her. She died. They indicted me. The newspapers disgraced me. My wife perished of a broken heart. And pneumonia finished me.
He protested all his life long. The newspapers lied about him villainously, that he was not at fault for Minerva's fall, but only tried to help her. Poor soul, so sunk in sin, he could not see that even trying to help her, as he called it, he had broken the law, both human and divine. Passers-by, an ancient admonition to you, that your ways would be ways of pleasantness, and all your pathways peace. Love God and all his commandments.
After I steadied down and got religion, they gave me a job at the canning works. And every day, I had to fill a tank in the yard with gasoline. That fed the blow fires which heated the soldering irons. And I mounted a rickety ladder to do it, carrying buckets full of the stuff. One day, as I stood there pouring, the air grew still and seemed to heave, and I shot up as the tank exploded, and down I came, with both legs broken and my eyes burned crisp as a couple of eggs.
I, born in Weimar, of a French mother and German father, a most learned professor, orphaned at 14 years, became a dancer known as Russian Sonia, all up and down the boulevards of Paris, mistress betimes of sundry dukes and counts, and later of poor artists and of poets. At 40 years passé, I sought New York, and met old Patrick Hummer on the boat, red-faced and hale, though turned his 60th year, returning after having sold a shipload of cattle in the German city Hamburg. He brought me to Spoon River, and we lived here for 20 years. I thought we were married. This oak tree near me is the favorite haunt of blue jays, chattering all the day. And why not? For my very dust is laughing for thinking of this humorous thing called life.
If the excursion train to Peoria had just been wrecked, I might have escaped with my life. Certainly I should have escaped this place. But as it was burned as well, they mistook me for Joan Allen, who was sent to the Hebrew cemetery, and Joan for me. So I lie here. It was bad enough to run a clothing store in this town, but to be buried here? Ugh.
My name used to be in the papers daily as having dined somewhere or traveled somewhere or rented a house in Paris. I was forever eating or traveling or taking the cure at Baden-Baden. Now, I am here to do honor to Spoon River, here beside the family whence I sprang. No one cares where I dined or lived, or whom I've entertained, or how often I took the cure at Baden-Baden.
I was a peasant girl from Germany, blue-eyed, rosy, happy, strong. And the first place I worked was at Thomas Green's. One day when she was away, he stole into the kitchen and took me right in his arms and kissed me on my throat. I turned my head, and then neither of us seemed to know what happened. And I cried for what would become of me, and cried as my secret began to show. One day, Mrs. Green said she understood and would make no trouble for me, and being childless, would adopt it. So she sent out rumors as if it were going to happen to her, and all went well, and the child was born. Later I married Gus Wertman, and years passed. But at political rallies, when passers-by thought I was crying at the eloquence of Hamilton Green, that was not it. No, I wanted to say, that's my son! That's my son.
They got me into the Sunday school in Spoon River and tried to get me to drop Confucius for Jesus. I would be no better off if I had tried to get them to drop Jesus for Confucius. For without any warning, as if it were a prank, Harry Wiley, the minister's son, caved my ribs into my lungs with a blow of his fist. Now I shall never sleep with my ancestors in Beijing, and no children shall worship at my grave.
Ye fleeting charms of earth, farewell, your springs of joy are dry. My soul now seeks another home, a brighter world on high. I'm a long time traveling here below. I'm a long time traveling away from home. I'm a long time traveling here below to lay this body down. Farewell, kind friends whose tender care has long engaged
wrote him a letter asking him, for old time's sake, to discharge my sick boy from the army. But maybe he couldn't read it. Then I went to town and had James Garber, who wrote beautifully, write him a letter. But maybe that was lost in the mails. Then I traveled all the way to Washington. I was more than an hour finding the White House, and when I found it, they turned me away, hiding their smiles. Then I thought, oh, well, he ain't the same as when I boarded him, and he and my husband worked together, and all of us called him Abe there in Menard. As a last attempt, I turned to a guard and said, please, say it's old Aunt Hannah Armstrong from Illinois. Come to see him about her sick boy in the army. Well, just in a moment, they let me in. And when he saw me, he broke in a laugh and dropped his business as president and wrote in his own hand Doug's discharge, talking the while of early days and telling stories.
I was the first fruits of the Battle of Missionary Ridge. When I felt the bullet enter my heart, wished I had stayed home and gone to jail for stealing the hogs of Curl Chinary instead of running away and joining the army. Rather 1,000 times the county jail than to lie under this marble figure with wings and this granite pedestal bearing the words Pro Patria. What do they even mean anyway?
Ugh, Nolt Hohammer ran away to war the day before Curl Chinary swore out a warrant through Justice Arnett for stealing the hogs. But that's not the reason he turned a soldier. He caught me running with Lucius Atherton. We quarreled. I told him never again to cross my path. Then he stole the hogs, went to war. The back of every soldier is a woman.
I was just turned 21, and Henry Phillips, the Sunday school superintendent, was giving a speech at the Bindle Opera House. The honor of the flag must be upheld, he said, whether it be assailed by the barbarous tribes of the Tagalogs or the greatest power of Europe. And we cheered and cheered the speech and the flag as it waved and he spoke. I went to war, in spite of my father, and I followed that flag till I saw it raised in our camp near the rice fields in Manila, and we cheered and cheered it. But there were flies and poisonous things, and there was the deathly water, and the grueling heat, and the sickening, putrid food, and the smell of the trenches behind our tents, where the soldiers went to empty themselves. And there were days of loathing and nights of fear. Through the hours of charge, through the steaming swamps, shot through the guts. And now there's a flag over me in Spoon River. A flag. A flag.
Spring and summer, fall and winter and spring, after each other drifting, past my window drifting. And I lay so many years watching them drift and counting the years, till a terror came in my heart at times, with the feeling I had become eternal. At last, my 100th year was reached. Day after day, alone in a room of the house, my thought ran back, it seemed, through infinite time, to North Carolina and all of my girlhood days, and John, my John, away to the war with the British, and all the children, the deaths, and the sorrows, and that stretch of years like a prairie in Illinois. O beautiful young republic for whom my John and I gave all of our strength and love. And oh, my John, why, when I lay so helpless in bed for years, waiting for you to come, was your coming delayed? Seeing that with a cry of rapture like that I had uttered when you found me in old Virginia after the war, I cried as I beheld you there by the bed, as the sun stood low in the west, growing smaller and fainter in the light of your face.
Illinois, where the shot and shell were falling. Illinois, Illinois. When the southern host withdrew, pitting gray against the blue, there were none more brave than you. Illinois, Illinois. There were none more brave than you. Illinois.
Rich, honored by my fellow citizens, the father of many children, born of a noble mother, always there, in the great mansion house at the edge of town. Note the cedar tree on the lawn. I sent all the boys to Ann Arbor, all the girls to Rockford, the while my life went on, getting more riches and honors, resting under my cedar tree in the evenings. The years went on. I sent the girls to Europe. I dowered them when married. I gave the boys money to start in business. They were strong children, promising as apples, before the bitten places show. But John fled the country in disgrace. Lizzie died in childbirth. I sat under my cedar tree. Harry killed himself after a debauch. Susan was divorced. I sat under my cedar tree. Paul was invalided from overstudy. Mary became a recluse at home for love of a man. I sat under my cedar tree. All were gone, or broken-winged, or devoured by life. I sat under my cedar tree. My mate, the mother of them, was taken. I sat under my cedar tree. Till 90 years were told. O maternal earth, which rocks the fallen leaf to sleep.
To love is to find your soul through the soul of the beloved one. When the beloved one detaches itself from your soul, then you have lost your soul. It is written, I have a friend, but my sorrow has no friend. Hence my many years of solitude at the home of my father, trying to get myself back, to turn my sorrow into a supremer self. But there was my father with his sorrow, sitting under the cedar tree, an image that sunk into my heart at last, bringing infinite repose. Oh, ye souls who have made life fragrant and white as tube roses from earth's dark soil, eternal peace.
Dust of my dust, and dust with my dust. O child who died as you entered the world, dead with my death. Not knowing breath, though you tried so hard, with a heart that beat when you lived with me, and stopped when you left me for life. It is well, my child, for you never traveled the long, long way that begins with school days, when little fingers blur under the tears that fall on the crooked letters, and the earliest wound, when a little mate leaves you alone for another, in sickness, in the face of fear by the bed, the death of a father or mother, or shame for them, or poverty. The maiden sorrow of school days ended, and eyeless nature that makes you drink from the cup of love, though you know it is poisoned. And then your children, oh, what might they be? And what your sorrow, child? Child, death is better than life.
We stand about this place, we the memories, and shade our eyes because we dread to read. June 17th, 1884, aged 21 years and 3 days. And all things are changed. And we the memories, stand here for ourselves alone. Your husband is dead. One sister lives far away. Your father is bent with age. Your other sister scarcely leaves the house anymore. No one remembers your exquisite face, your lyric voice, how you sang even on the morning you were stricken. With piercing sweetness, with thrilling sorrow, before the advent of the child which died with you. It is all forgotten, save by us, the memories, who are forgotten by the world. All is changed, save the river and the hill. Even they are changed. Only the burning sun and the quiet stars stay the same. And we the memory, stand here in awe, our eyes closed with the weariness of tears, in immeasurable weariness.
I dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair, born like a vapor on the summer air. I see her tripping where the bright streams play, happy as the daisies that dance on her way. Many were the wild notes her merry voice would pour, many were the blithe birds that warbled them o'er. Oh, I dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair, floating like a vapor on the soft summer air.
I was not beloved of the villagers, but all because I spoke my mind, and met those who transgressed against me with plain remonstrance, hiding nor nurturing, nor secret griefs nor grudges. That act of the Spartan boy is greatly praised, who hid the wolf under his cloak, letting it devour him uncomplainingly. It is braver, I think, to snatch the wolf forth and fight him even in the street, amid dust and howls of pain. The tongue may be an unruly member, but silence poisons the soul. Berate me who will, I am content.
From Bindle's Opera House in the village to Broadway is a great step, but I tried to take it, my ambition fired, when 16 years of age, seeing East Lynne played here in the village, I, Ralph Barrett, the coming, a romantic actor who enthralled my soul. True, I trailed back home, a broken failure. When Ralph disappeared in New York, leaving me alone in the city, but life broke him also. In all this place of silence, there are no kindred spirits.
When my mustache curled, and my hair was black, and I wore tight trousers and a diamond stud, I was an excellent knave of hearts who took many a trick. But when gray hairs began to appear, lo, a new generation of girls laughed at me, not fearing me. And I had no more adventures, wherein I was all but shot for a heartless devil, but only drabby affairs, warmed-over affairs, of other days and other men. And as time went on, I found myself at Mayor's Tavern, partaking of short orders. A gray, toothless, discarded, rural Don Juan.
I would have been as great as George Eliot, but for an untoward fate. For look at me in the photograph by Pennywit, chin resting on hand, deep-set eyes, grey too, and far searching. But there was the old problem. Should it be celibacy, matrimony, or unchastity? Then John Slack, the rich druggist, wooed me, luring me with the promise of leisure for my novel, and I married him, giving birth to 8 children, and had no time to write. It was all over for me anyway when I ran the needle in my hand while watching the baby sing, and died of lockjaw, an ironical death. Hear me, ambitious souls! Sex is the curse of life!
I went to the dances at Chandlerville and played Snap Out at Winchester. One time we changed partners, driving home in the moonlight of middle June. And then I found Davis. We were married and lived together for 70 years, enjoying, working, raising the 12 children, 8 of whom we lost ere I'd reached the age of 60. I spun, I wove, I kept the house, I nursed the sick, I made the garden, and for holiday rambled over the fields where sang the larks. And by Spoon River gathering many a shell and many a flower and medicinal weed, shouting to the wooded hills and singing to the green valleys. At 96, I had lived enough. That is all, and passed to a sweet repose. What is this I hear of sorrow and weariness, anger, discontent, and drooping hopes? Degenerate sons and daughters, life is too strong for you. It takes life to love life.
The earth keeps some vibration going there in your heart. And that is you. And if the people find you can fiddle, why, fiddle you must for all your life. What do you see? A harvest of clover, or a meadow to walk through to the river, or else you hear the rustle of skirts like the girls went dancing at Little Grove. How could I till my 40 acres, not to speak of getting more, with the medley of horns, bassoons, and piccolos stirred in my brain by crows and robins, and the creak of a windmill? Only these. And I never started to plow in my life that someone did not stop in the road and take me away to a dance or a picnic. I ended up with 40 acres. I ended up with a broken fiddle, and a broken laugh, and 1,000 memories, and not a single regret.